When it comes to retirement, one of the biggest questions Singaporeans ask is how much will I get from CPF Life every month? It sounds like a simple question. That's because your payouts depends on how much you have saved, which plan you go for, when you decide to start your payouts, and even your gender will affect your payouts. That's why in this video, we will break down everything you need to know about CPF Life and how you can boost your payouts even further. By the end, you have a clearer idea on how to best plan your CPF strategy so that you can enjoy a comfortable and worry-free retirement. So first up, let's start with the full retirement sum because the amount it pays out is roughly what most retirees in Singapore would need for a basic standard of living. For example, according to the Minimum Income Standard 2023 study, a single elderly person would need around $1,492 a month to cover essential needs like food, transport, healthcare, and basic leisure. And after adjusting for inflation, that number goes up to around $1,552 today. That is pretty close to the $1,610 to $1,730 that you will get if you turn 55 this year and have achieved the full retirement sum. That's why for most people, the goal is to try to reach at least the full retirement sum, which is $213,000 this year. Though, one thing to note is that this amount is not fixed and will increase by about 3.5% every year on average. This is to ensure that future CPF Life payouts are able to keep up with inflation and rising living costs. For example, let's say you are 25 years old today. By the time you turn 55, assuming the FRS continues to grow at around 3.5% per year, your FRS would be closer to $600,000. Now, before you be like, wow, 600k, impossible to reach one lah. Using a CPF calculator tool that I found online, I found that even if you are earning around $4,000 a month with absolutely no increment at all, you will still reach the FRS through your regular CPF contributions alone. But of course, that doesn't count in the fact that you'll be using your CPF to pay for your housing lah. And again, before you be like, nah, see, housing is getting expensive, use up all my CPF money, just know that I haven't factored in housing grants, higher salaries, and annual increments, all of which will help to bump up your CPF savings. And even if you do find yourself falling short of the FRS, you can always make top-ups to your CPF accounts to close the gap. And the good news is that your special accounts earns around 4 to 5% interest per year. This is higher than the current 3.5% growth rate of the FRS. So once you reach the FRS, your savings will grow faster than the FRS itself, meaning you won't have to worry about falling behind ever again. Now, of course, topping up isn't the only option. You can also consider investing your CPF ordinary accounts to potentially earn higher returns. For example, let's say if you have invested 50k into a globally diversified fund, even if we were to use a super conservative 6% annual return, which is well below the long-term 10% average return of the S&P 500 over a 20-year period, that amount will still grow to $160,000. This is almost double than what you would have gotten if you have just left the money in CPF. With that kind of extra money, you would have boosted your CPF Life payouts from just $1,700 a month to $2,120 a month. Now, it is important to understand that the FRS payouts is ultimately just a projection and not a fixed guarantee. Instead, the actual amounts that you will receive at age 65 can vary depending on several factors. First, your gender. For example, if you are male, your estimated CPF Life payouts is around $1,700 a month. But if you are a female, that drops to about $1,590 a month. And no, it's not because CPF is biased against women. It's simply because women have a longer life expectancy, which means the same retirement sum has to be spread out over more years of payouts. This is also why some couples prefer to top up more money to the husband's CPF accounts. Since men tend to receive slightly higher money payouts for the same amount saved, this approach can help to maximize the total household CPF Life income during retirement. Besides that, payouts can also drop if more people are living longer in the future. That's because CPF Life works on a pooled system where members' contributions are combined to provide lifelong payouts for everyone. So if life expectancy rises significantly over time, CPF may need to lower the payouts to ensure that the system remains sustainable. And last but not least, if interest rates fall below expectations, the money payout could also be reduced. This is because CPF invests your savings into a long-term special Singapore government securities, and lower interest returns would mean lower annuity income. Quick pause. You can now get up to $1,000 in rewards when you sign up for Poems by Philip Capital. To qualify, make sure the Smart Spark option is ticked during sign up. From there, your rewards will depend on how much you fund and trade. For example, if you fund at least $3,000 within 14 days, keep it there for 30 days, and complete 3 buy trades, you will receive up to $50 worth of fractional shares. But if you fund $10,000 or more, make at least 5 trades, your rewards will jump to $150 instead. And here's something extra. The first 50 people who sign up each week will also receive an additional $50 stock coupon. The featured stock changes weekly. For example, in the second week is a Hershey stock coupon. Plus, you will also enjoy 0 commission on US trades for 30 days once you meet the terms and conditions. So if you are interested, you can sign up with my link down below. Next, even though the payouts from FRS is designed to cover a basic standard of living, whether it is enough for you or not ultimately depends on your lifestyle and the kind of retirements that you want. For instance, according to the Household Expenditure Survey, a single elderly aged 65 and over who's living in a 1 to 2 room HDB flat only spends around $930 a month, while someone living in a private condominium can spend close to $3,000. And as much as I would like to think that I'm a thrifty person who doesn't spend that much, when I tried out the CPF retirement payout plan, it told me otherwise. Based on the kind of retirement lifestyle that I want, where I'm usually prudent but will spend more occasionally, mostly visit polyclinics and government hospitals for my healthcare needs, mostly dine at hawker centers and treat myself to a nice restaurant meal once in a while, go on one regional overseas trip a year, and take the occasional taxi, I will still need about $2,910 a month in today's dollars when I retire. At the same time, even though on paper the $1,700 monthly payouts sounds nice, in reality, due to inflation, the purchasing power of this payout will drop like grapes the longer you live. For example, with a 2.5% inflation, by the time you hit 85, that $1,700 will feel more like $1,000 today. And by 95, it will shrink further to about $795 in today's value. That's why if you want to boost your retirement income even further, one way is by topping up to the Enhanced Retirement Sum, which is twice the amount of FRS. Now, what some people don't realize is that you don't have to strictly choose between the FRS or ERS. Instead, you can top up any amount between the two. For example, if at age 65, you increase your retirement savings from $315,000 to $530,000, your monthly payouts will go up proportionally. And the more you top up, the higher your payouts you will get. Also, another interesting thing is that unlike the FRS, which is fixed the moment you turn 55, the ERS limits will keep increasing every year. For example, this year it is $426,000 and next year it will rise to about $440,800 and so on. So what some people might do is take the extra savings or payouts that they didn't use during the year and top it back into CPF Life up to the new ERS limits the following year. And each time they do that, their money payout increases by around $100 to $200. Now, of course, whether this is the best use of your money is up for debate, since there are other ways to grow your retirement income without locking it into CPF forever, such as investing into dividend stocks or ETFs. But for those who value guaranteed lifelong income, topping up to the ERS can be one of the safest and most predictable ways to secure a higher payout during retirement. Next, besides topping up your money into your CPF, another way to increase your payout is by delaying the start of your CPF Life payouts from age 65 to 70. For every year that you delay, your payouts will increase by up to 7%. So if you delay for the full 5 years, your monthly income can rise by as much as 35%. But should you actually do it? Let's look at an example. If you start your CPF Life payouts at age 65 under the standard plan, you will receive around $1,700 a month. However, if you choose to defer it to age 70, your payout jumps to about $2,290 a month. That is nearly $600 more every month. If you do the math, the break-even age is roughly 85 years old, meaning you will only start to receive more total money from CPF Life if you live beyond 85. But if you pass away earlier than that, CPF wins lah. But if you live longer, say into your late 80s or 90s, then delaying the payouts will have paid off handsomely. Given how medical advances are helping Singaporeans live longer than ever, I would say deferring could be a smart choice if you expect to live a long and healthy life. That said, if you ask me personally, I would still prefer to start my payouts at age 65. As the saying goes, a bird in one hand is worth two in the bush. The future is uncertain, and while having the money earlier gives me flexibility, with that money, I can spend it while I'm still active and healthy, or even invest it for potentially higher returns during those 5 years, instead of letting it sit in CPF earning a 4 to 6% return. Next, besides delaying your payouts to boost your CPF Life income, another way to gradually increase your money payouts is by choosing the escalating plan. So unlike the standard plan, which pays a fixed amount for life, the escalating plan starts off with a lower payout initially, but your payout increases by 2% every year. This means the longer you live, the higher your money income becomes. This helps you keep up with rising prices over time. Here's an old example of how this works. So under the standard plan, you receive about $1,700 $1,500 a month, while under the escalating plan, you start off with a lower $1,162 a month. But because the escalating plan increases by 2% yearly, it slowly goes up over time, and by around age 77, it overtakes the standard plan, and from that point on, you'll be receiving more money every month for the rest of your life. So is the escalating plan worth it? Again, it depends on how long you live. If you live till 70 or 80 years old, then the standard plan will still give you more total payouts. But if you live a long and healthy life, say up to 100 years old, then the escalating plan will pay out significantly more, though the sweet spot or the break-even age is around 89 years old. So if you can live beyond that, then the escalating plan wins. However, while inflation is real, the truth is that as you grow older, your spending habits naturally change. Once you settle into a more routine lifestyle, your discretionary expenses such as travel, shopping, or dining out tend to decline. This phase, which is also known as the slow go years, is when most retirees travel less, spend less, while spending more time at home watching MediaCorp shows with a cup of kopi or croissant. However, at the same time, later on in life, your medical expenses may start to rise again, especially if you need long-term care or assisted living. That is when your total spending starts to climb again. Because of that, personally, even though the escalating plan pays out more in later years, I would still prefer the standard plan. That's because I would rather enjoy higher payouts earlier when I'm still healthy and active enough to make full use of it, rather than having more money later when I might not have the energy or health to spend it. At the end of the day, it really isn't just about getting the highest payouts, but it's also about designing a retirement plan that actually fits the kind of life that you want to live. Some people value stability and guaranteed income, while others prefer flexibility and control. Whether you choose to start early, defer, or top up to the enhanced retirement sum, what really matters is that you start planning early. The earlier you take charge of your CPF strategy, the more options you have, and the more freedom you will get to enjoy your later years on your own terms. Anyway, that's all for this video. Hope you found this useful. Like, share, and subscribe, as I'll be posting new videos every week.